Hey, Anton.
Yeah, Margaret?
Do you know people don't talk about enough?
What?
August is very out of touch. Welcome to People Don't Talk About, Young Royals. I'm Margaret. My pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Anton. My pronouns are he, they.
And we're people here to discuss the show our friends are sick of hearing us talk about.
If that sounds like you, stick around. If your friends sent you this podcast of a desperate attempt to get you to watch Young Royals, take this as a sign.
Go watch Young Royals, then come back to this podcast.
Margaret, what are we talking about today?
Today we will be having a plot discussion of Season 1, Episode 4, focusing on all the relationships that are not Wilhelm and Simon.
Woohoo! In this discussion, we won't be summarizing the plot of the episode because we already did that. If you need or want a refresher, head back 4 episodes in our feed to our most recent This Week at Hilarska for a full breakdown. This episode discussion will likely be all over the place, so strap in. You have been warned. How do we want to approach this? You're technically hosting, so
well, it's a great question. We could just start at the beginning of our notes because we both did them in the same order because I saw the order you did and copied it.
Fair enough. I mean, the Love and Royals always feels that, like, having it complete total chaos is not the way to go.
No.
And so listeners have probably noticed that I try to basically address one person's relationships in order. Usually I start with Wilhelm's, and then use the last one of Wilhelm's that we talked about to transition into another person's, and then go on so that we're always connected by one character through from relation to relationship. That being said, although it didn't really count based on the rules that we kind of unspokenly established, I wanted to talk about Wilhelm and Eric for a sec.
I'd love to.
I basically all I have my note for this one in terms of like describing the relationship is losing the one person who supported you no matter what.
Yeah. That's pretty much what I wrote as well.
Because other than like Wilhelm's like relationship with himself, which is like doesn't usually count, basically we kind of start off the episode thinking about Wilhelm and Eric's relationship, like with like at least like a reminder voiceover of the conversation they have. I think it's like right before he leaves Hilarska, right? It's the last conversation they have in person.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like don't go, like, and then he's like, "I'll see you soon," essentially.
Mm-hmm.
Which fuck, just God. But yeah, I mean, Eric, as mentioned in previous episodes, I think maybe in the last episode, like the show never lets you forget that Eric is dead.
Correct.
I think I said that in Art of the Frame, but regardless, like it is just like Eric hangs over this episode more than any of them, but like, I don't know. I don't think I've encountered a show really where a character who does not make an appearance outside of voiceover that is not new to the audience, like, is just like,
mm-hmm.
he hangs over the entire episode in this, like,
yeah,
it's, and I think it's because Wilhelm, and to a lesser extent August, but like, I don't want to discount August. They're both like haunted by him.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'd agree.
Yeah, and like so is Christina, and so is Duke Ludwig. Like like anyone who knew and loved Eric, like, is just like holding him inside them in this, like, there's nothing like paranormal or supernatural about it. It's just like they're haunted in the way that any person would realistically be haunted with after such a sudden loss.
Yeah. Yep.
Which then impacts those people's relationships with each other too.
Mm-hmm.
Which then we get into Wilhelm and Christina. Thoughts?
I actually did have a thought. Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen often, but I do have them on occasion. And oh my god, this brings up something I gotta talk with you off mic. But anyways, I am wondering, because last week we were reading Christina putting her arm on Wilhelm's back as supportive. Yeah. I am wondering if she is signaling to him that he has to walk now. And it's not actually all that supportive.
Yeah. I mean, even in her wording, I will say, like, for listeners, that was 2 weeks ago, just because we split up the part 1, part 2, and over different weeks, but it's all good.
2 weeks
I just
ago.
wanted to make sure no one was confused. But even the words she's saying, she says you'll be compared. She specifically says, like, you'll be compared to Eric in every action you take and like every like step you make. Which I didn't intend that for that to rhyme. That's just how English works.
Isn't that a song lyric?
Probably. Make and take are often rhymed with each other, I think. Because in most accents they sound the same, so they rhyme. So I think just the phrasing you said, like, I think showing you like she was supporting him at the funeral, but now she's talking like he has to walk, like it's.
I'm talking about at the funeral,
at the
though, when she
funeral.
puts his hand on his back. I think that's just to be like, walk.
Yeah, well, I think she was doing that during the service, if I remember. Like, it cut really fast, but I think.
Was it? I thought it looked like it was like right before he had to start walking down the aisle.
I mean, that's also valid. Okay, this is why I have my iPad here, so I can double check. Yeah, you're right. You're totally right. It's like the most of her physical contact, at least, comes before he has to move down the aisle, and leave the church. And so it's like, it's supportive in an almost motherly way. But like we said last time, you can't distinguish between whether or not she's being Queen of Sweden in this moment, like supporting the crown prince, or if she's being Wilhelm's mom. Like it's indistinguishable.
Yeah.
Like I basically my first note for the relationship is, in a battle between being his mother and being queen, for Christina, being queen always wins out.
Oh, 100%.
But it is a struggle. And we should acknowledge that. Like I also mentioned 2 weeks ago in the first part of Art of the Choice that, like, I noticed the microacting of Christina for a brief moment when Duke Ludwig suggests like sending Wilhelm back to Hlerska for a familiar environment. She's just like, I can't lose another son. Mm-hmm. Like she has this brief like separation anxiety that just flashes across her face until like the logic of like, I am Queen of Sweden sets in, and she like remembers why she sent him to Hlerska in the first place, and that like that reason is still totally valid and like should remain the crown's top priority, even more so now that Wilhelm is crown prince.
Yeah.
And with Eric gone, like, you need to make sure you maintain as strong an image as possible. And like the whole thing, I mean, Sarah says it, the whole point of the crown is that it never changes. And so like, even when something as radical as losing your oldest son happens, you just need to patch everything back up and just like ship it off, just like as if nothing ever happened. Mm-hmm. Like recognize and like memorialize Eric. Like, that's fine. That's cool. Like that makes sense. But like, you shouldn't be seen like openly grieving in a way that isn't like grieving for the nation.
Yeah.
Like, that's why the royal family only seems to allow displays of grief in a public forum. like in public, like in private, they're all just like numb and like saying things they don't mean, and like still like Christina still like bursts into tears, like spits out her salad and walks out of the room. But it's like, up until that point, like, she had kept everything buttoned up in private. Like, it's so backwards. Like, show no emotion in private and then let it out in public as a performance, at least a little bit.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
But
makes sense.
I think it's interesting what you say to... No, you're good. I think it's interesting what you said about, like, feeling it in public as a performance. Because it's not fake, but it is a performance. Because they're only doing it when people are watching, or at least Christina
Like, it's not strictly performative. Like, it's not performative emotion. Like, she isn't, like, literally, like, acting. But it's, like, it's channeled. It's, like, focused and deliberate. Like, I'm gonna let myself feel this in the moment. And like I said 2 weeks ago, like, at the funeral was essentially the only time she let herself do that. Yeah.
Pretty much.
Because at every point from now on, she cannot be a grieving mother. She has to be the Queen of Sweden.
Yeah.
it's like we said last time, like thinking bisexually, we can hate and understand Christina at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
And now on to Duke Ludwig, because I think this might be the first time since maybe the first episode that we've separated the parents, because I think the relationship to Wilhelm is distinctly different in this episode from each other.
That, and he also has a line in this episode.
He has a line in the pilot, I'm pretty sure, but I literally don't even remember what it is.
He's talking to Eric in the pilot, isn't he?
I thought he makes Wilhelm makes like a reference to him, like he says something to him, but I'm not even sure if he says something back. Like as they're like, as like, but like either before or after Christina pulls Wilhelm's hand away when he's trying to bite his nails. Being like, be like, Dad, like say something like, I don't want to do this or something like that. Like,
yeah.
Or like, and I think he says something along the lines of like, it's for your own good, or like, listen to your mother, or like something just completely dismissive.
I think you're right, but I can't remember what it was exactly.
Yeah, and I think it doesn't really totally matter because we're talking about this episode. And in this episode, I don't know. Generally, I get the sense that Duke Ludwig usually does whatever he can to not make waves. Mm-hmm. Like, he is a dutiful husband, and like not even I used to call him for briefly before I got corrected and realized the truth. I used to call him king consort, but he's not even that. Like, he's a duke in his own right, but still like not. He is husband to the queen first and foremost.
Yeah.
And it's like,
I guess I don't know the difference between those two,
right.
but I'm just gonna go with it because I don't feel like I have the.
Well, duke is basically the highest noble title below like king and queen.
Okay.
And usually in the UK, the spouse of the reigning monarch is called blank consort, which essentially means you do not have any political power, but your like role in society officially and like legally essentially is to be the spouse of the reigning monarch. And like there's a little bit more like respect and prestige to that. And like, because like people would still call like the wives of Henry VIII were still Queen of England,
right?
Even though they were technically queen consort, no one says that because it's awkward, and so you're just like, oh, you're queens, and so like your queens, like your queens like by marriage, but you're still queens. But like the Duke is not even like Ludwig is not even king. He is like literally like in the order of hierarchy. He is actually subservient to his wife, like legally and by the laws of nobility, like just actually a servant of the crown. And he acts like it. Fair enough.
Yeah, he does.
But like his like second line in the series, because again I can't even remember what he says in the pilot, but whatever, like is suggest Wille be sent away again. He's suggesting a return to normalcy, a smoothing over, and a refusal to alter the status quo too much. Like,
which is bonkers to me.
He's being a responsible member of the royal family, and it's maddening.
I know, but imagine being like, you need to go somewhere familiar. That school that you've been at for a few months.
Yeah, because like he doesn't seem like a particularly like deceitful person, but that has to be some form of lie, even if he's telling it to himself. Because what planet are you on that you think a place that you've been for a few months at most is a familiar environment compared to the place he's lived forever?
Yeah.
Ridiculous. Let's move away from the royal family. We can talk about this more in Privilege Punishment. Let's talk about Wilhelm and Hilerska as a whole. Like,
okay, I'm
kind of more like, really, this used to be at one point I call this just Wilhelm and Hilerska, like, but like I mean the people there in general, and also Wilhelm's relationship like to the institution, which is a little Privilege Punishment-y, but like as he's like because this is the episode of his return. After a bit, like it makes sense. Like we can try to make sense of this relationship because it's going to impact like everything else we talk about in this episode.
Right.
Like I don't know. I think as much as he has once again been sent away to Hilershka, I think in his heart of hearts, Wille sees the school as a refuge.
I both agree and disagree.
Like, because I'm like, of course it's a refuge where he's forced to endure constant attention, which only reinforces his new pressure to be the best crown prince he can be, slowly suffocating his joy day by day. Like, it's like, it is both.
Yeah.
Like, it's the place that is slowly killing him, and also the place where he feels safest. Which is fucked.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's interesting because it feels like he's at least not when we see him, is he ever comfortable back where he has lived for 16 years. But right before he gets out of the car, he's like mentally, and you can almost see him like physically like bracing himself for this. And it's hard to say whether that's because he's back at Hilershka or because he knows the speech that he has to give. And like all of that. So that's hard to say what the actual cause is. But I feel like it's kind of the last place he wants to be, but the place he needs to be at the same time.
Yeah, definitely. Because not only for the show to continue, like, imagine if you just stayed at the palace for like the rest of season 1.
That'd be so boring.
Exactly. Like, we need it for the drama, but like also it just makes reasonable sense that the royal family wouldn't let him wallow. Right. Which is going to have consequences. Like, it has consequences in this episode. He literally nearly dies of an overdose. Like, because he was sent away far too soon.
Yep.
But let's follow him down his descent, shall we? Wilhelm and Annette. That hug. Like, that hug needed. Like, Annette barely figures into this episode or this series, frankly, but like, that hug needs to be acknowledged again. I hope we acknowledged it basically every single episode of this cycle.
Well, that's because I stand by the fact that I think she's the first person who has offered him any like really genuine support.
Definitely. But I decided that this episode is the one where I wanted to introduce a bit of nuance to this relationship, though, because
I'd love to, because I read this and I think you're absolutely right.
And like, again, I'm not gonna I'm gonna stop questioning whether or not my interpretation of this current episode is colored by the fact that I now know what happens in season 3. Like, generally, the fans who know, but like, regardless, like, this is how I'm interpreting it in this moment, and this is just an honest reaction. Like, I've always been inclined to feel positively about Annette, the principal, after this scene. And then I remember she's complicit in the initiations. Like, regardless of whether the admin like knows what the other students do to the first years, she still accepts the hierarchy of the school as a given. Like, she is the head of this institution, and it's like, later it's implied like there is a board that she has to answer to, like any like private institution. But at the same time, it's like, she's freaking principal. Like, she could make change if she wanted to, but she doesn't want to.
Right.
And like, she can be a caring person and a part of the system at the same time. And a damaging part of the system at that.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, through her passivity more than anything else. Like, nothing she's actively doing necessarily, but that counts.
Yeah, it does.
Wilhelm and his bodyguards.
Yes.
Enter Malin. Not sure if we ever learned the other guard's name.
I don't think we do.
I think they might switch out, honestly. Malin is the only one who's really consistent. Or feels consistent, at least, because she's the only one who ever gets a name.
That's true.
I don't know. I think in that first line that Malin, like, first line Malin has formally addressing Wilhelm, of like, after he says to leave him alone. I think from that point on, I can, and especially like immediately following that, realizing that what they meant by leaving him alone is taking like 3 steps further back of following him. Like, these bodyguards are people, but they also have to do their job. Yeah,
and probably less so at Hilershka, but if he was anywhere else, their job would be incredibly important.
Right. But it's like they're in the middle of the nowhere in the forest in Sweden.
Right. Yeah. At a boarding school where,
like,
even if somebody doesn't love Wilhelm personally, they respect him.
And it's like, fair enough. There's a bus stop, like, in easy walking distance from the school. Like, it's not impossible for someone who doesn't go to Hilerska to try to, like, give them a visit and, like, try to fuck people up.
Yeah.
But, like, this isn't America. Sweden's gun violence problem is probably next to non-existent. Swedish listeners, correct me if I'm wrong, but, like, you can't be as bad. You can't get as bad as America, really. With among like developed countries, like among Western powers. Like it's and like I could be talking out of my ass here. Like I don't fully know the statistics, but like people know America's reputation. Like I'm not saying anything radical here. Like it's just like this isn't a country where someone could just conceal carry on the bus, take it to Hilerska, and open fire, which is like the thing that like bodyguards are there to protect against the most, and like at least that's what that's like the secret, like that's like what the Secret Service protects against, and like that's that's like the closest equivalent that I can think of for America. Yeah. And so like protecting the president and his family and all former presidents and their families.
Mm-hmm.
Like. It's just a thing where these people have jobs to do and they can't question how valid their presence is because they're getting paid. And if they want to keep getting paid, they don't question anything.
Right.
And like they're only going to allow him a little bit of leeway because like who even knows how they were briefed on Wilhelm before actually meeting him? Like imagine what the royal court put together on like his file before they actually went to Hilerska with him.
Mm-hmm.
Like they would have fully known about his party prince past and his reputation. They would have known what happened at the nightclub. They would have,
which I think is hilarious because he sneaks out of his room with ease.
He does. Like they don't post a guard outside because they're not looking at threats from inside. They are there to keep Wilhelm there. They're not protecting the outside. They're keeping Wilhelm in line. They're a reminder of the royal family's presence and the fact that he is going to constantly be watched.
Yeah. Which in doing so make it so easy for him to just sneak out.
Yeah. Like in not actually protecting on threats from the outside. Like in a roundabout way, in a way that it's not totally unfair, it is Malin and the other guards' fault that August was able to take a video.
Yeah.
Like it is ultimately August's fault because he made that choice, but it wouldn't have happened if one of them had been stationed outside Wilhelm's window. If they'd have realized that the window is easily open from the inside.
Yep.
What the fuck? Why? Why? Especially, like, also, it's like, you're just bad at the job that you were given. Because it's like, if you're trying to keep Wilhelm in line, make sure his window can't open. Are you kidding me? Like, if you want to keep Wilhelm in place, check the fucking windows. It's absurd to me.
And it does bring up an interesting point of, like, if Simon didn't get him back to his room that night. What
the fuck happens to the crown prince of Sweden? Like, if Wilhelm didn't remember Simon's number or find it in his trash of his contacts, like, if Simon was pissed off enough at Wilhelm and didn't care about him enough to come, if Simon wasn't physically able to get Wilhelm to his room, so many bad things could have happened. Like, that is honestly, given the royal family positions, this episode is actually, like, up until August films them, is like the best case scenario that was going to happen based on the royal family's actions, based on Duke Ludwig's suggestion that Christina agrees with to send Wilhelm back to Hilerska.
Yeah,
and telling August to take care of Wilhelm, which, like, she's not going to know what that means to August because she has so little context for who August is as a person. Like, I do not think they've met more than a handful of times.
Yeah.
like, if it was a feat for him to make Eric his friend to an extent, and they're second cousins, like, I think even the Queen, August's cousin, is like...
Is that how cousins work? Is the Queen August's cousin?
I believe so, because he's Wilhelm's second cousin. So...
How do cousins work?
That would basically mean that that August and the Queen share grandparents.
They share great-grandparents.
No, they share grandparents. If they're first cousins.
A second cousin is a family member who shares a great-grandparent.
Wilhelm and August share great-grandparents. The Queen and August share grandparents.
Yeah.
Your first cousin has the same grandparents as you. At least on the side of the siblings who are related to each other. And so your mom's first cousin's kid. So presumably August's dad was the younger brother of the Queen's father. Probably like by a substantial age gap, but
no.
Yeah.
No, it would be August's dad would be the Queen's cousin's child. No. Be the Queen's cousin.
No, because August and the Queen are cousins.
But this says your mom's first cousin's kid is your second cousin.
Okay, your mom's
So your mom's first cousin. So that would be the Queen is first cousins with August's dad.
Oh yeah. Yes. That makes sense. Yes. Oh yeah, because otherwise there'd be because we never learn about once removed thing. Because I think Wilhelm and the Queen and August are, I think, first cousins once removed. I think. Anyway,
sure.
Regardless, that semantics. Anyways, I don't think they've met much. Like, yeah.
No.
That even further like reinforces the point that like how much do you interact with your second cousins, especially if you're.
I don't think I have.
Especially if you're insular in terms of like the royal family, so.
Right.
Like if you're as insular as the royal family, you don't really interact much with your extended family. I don't think, because you don't want to like give people outside of your immediate family that much political power, or like social power, because that's mostly what the royal family has in Sweden, but
right,
like status. Like you don't want to extend the status too far because then they start seeing them as viable candidates if your family can't produce an heir.
Yeah.
Basically, that kind of transitions into Wilhelm and the society.
Yeah.
I agree with you. Wilhelm doesn't really take them seriously. But I also want to reinforce my point last week that like he still knows immediately that he has to pretend to take them seriously.
Yeah, I say he goes along with it anyways.
Fair enough. Yeah. Like as mentioned last episode, like he has in his grief learned simply to play along. Like to play the game knowing that it's rigged in his favor.
And to be fair, he has done that since getting to Hilarska. But he's been
doing it reluctantly. I think the first time he ever really does it to an extent is at Parents' Day. When Eric basically tells him go down there and pretend to be somebody else. Which but also like agree. Simon's there, so he actually is fairly authentic. But now with Simon gone, this feels like a new Wilhelm to me. A Wilhelm who has like numbed himself to basically everything but his grief for Eric, and then through that is able to just kind of fairly pragmatically be just like, okay, I know what I have to do, and I know that like if I play along and don't make waves, people will give me whatever I want.
Yeah.
And it creates a certain level of confidence that like is honestly that the moment that I think really shines through and like illustrates what scares me about that for me is the way in which he is able to effortlessly shut August down just by saying, let's move on. Like making a quick joke of being like, when August is like being intense about being like, the one thing we have in common is that like we care about the royal family and like we'll do anything to protect it. And he's like, And he's like, and on that note, like let's get back to playing, like trying to like diffuse the intense moment, and like everyone follows him, and just dismisses August.
Yeah,
like, and that is the level of power that he just wields without even trying, as long as he is fitting in to what everyone expects of him, and the role that he is now a part of, like the role that now he has. When he just acts as expected, things just happen for him.
Right. Yeah.
But Wilhelm and August.
Ooh, yeah. So this kind of goes with Wilhelm and the Society and Wilhelm with August, but it's my cold open, so I want to make sure I don't miss it, because otherwise my cold open makes no sense. We always talk about how much he sucks for the end of the episode, and he does suck for the end of the episode. But I think we need to talk about how shitty he is for thinking, you know what we need to do? Initiate Wilhelm into a society that is meant for firstborn sons right after his brother dies.
And portraying it like an honor.
Yeah.
Like
that is so out of touch.
And the thing is, I think in a really terrifying way, it is an example of August never seeing past like an inch in front of his nose, in the sense that like he would be very flattered if he got to take his older brother who's just died's place in a secret society that protects against the extinction of the noble houses within it. Like,
yeah.
And I mean, it brings up, want to trade places? Why not?
Yeah.
Because it's like,
yeah,
Wilhelm doesn't like August, but I think he needs him in this moment, or thinks he needs him. Which is basically the same thing in this instance. Like, August is the only person in Hilarska half as close to Eric as Wilhelm was. And it's like, the pissing and screaming scene will always be touching to me. Like, even it comes on the same night as one of the worst things August ever does.
Right. Yeah.
And even if it is the direct consequence of giving drugs and alcohol to a grieving person.
Yeah, because everybody knows that's a great combination.
But then I can't believe I'm about to say this, in August's defense, he is grieving too, which means he's not thinking clearly.
Yes.
I'm not trying to say that August's grief is nowhere near on the level of Wilhelm's, but it's like,
I'm just thinking like everybody else who is in that room is not grieving in the same way that August is, who's not grieving in the same way that Wilhelm is. So how does nobody realize? Or like when he wanders off.
Why are people like, hey, where's the crown prince?
Realize how intoxicated. Yeah.
Where's the guy we just initiated into society?
He is.
Like, did they think that he would just make his way back to his room? Unless Wilhelm is shockingly good at pretending to be sober when he's not. But like, we saw him in that screaming scene. Like, he is not.
I don't think
he's not pretending anything. People just lost track of him. We
see him in the football scene.
Exactly. Like, I think people just lost track of him.
Yeah.
Somehow. Like, did he just say he was going back to his room and then didn't? Like,
I don't know.
Also, oh my God, I just realized how far away the football field has to be from.
Yeah.
Did he walk? He had to have walked there.
Well, yeah.
That explains how late it is, because what the fuck? That's a long walk.
Yeah.
Ridiculous.
Mm-hmm.
Do we have anything more to say about Wilhelm and August?
Just that it's weird. Because we go from the screaming scene where August is being supportive. But then we pivot that within, like, I don't know how long screen time it is, but it feels like about 10 minutes. To
one of the worst possible betrayals.
Biggest betrayal. Yeah, certainly within this show, but possibly ever.
It's
Like, it's just, how did we go?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
I think it's just like trying to put yourself in August's head for this is bizarre.
Is nauseating.
That's the word. Like, I think he has never gotten how little Wilhelm likes him.
Correct.
And I think because of that, he sees them as like family and friends.
Mm-hmm.
And in the logic and like ideology around sex and intimacy and privacy that he's been given at Hilershka, this is fair game.
Mm-hmm.
It's slightly extreme, but only slightly.
Yeah. Which is messed up in and of itself.
Yes.
Like, let's not lose sight of that.
Like, I mean, if we understand, well, not hate, but like, if we can judge while also understanding Annette for being complicit and being a part of the system, August is king of being a part of the system.
He is.
Of just like uncritically reproducing the most extreme and like, he is the purest version of a Hilershka student. There's basically nothing in him other than like things that like are directly related to his substantial trauma, but even that kind of gets folded in there, like, because like, who at Hilershka doesn't have parental trauma? Let's be real.
Right.
They're rich kids. And like everything about him is just like quintessential Hilershka,
Mm-hmm.
which is why it's like there are times in which like I hate August for what he does at the end of this episode, obviously. But in many ways, it doesn't feel like August did this to Wilhelm. It feels like Hilershka did this to Wilhelm and Simon.
Yeah.
Because just like we've talked about August being an extension of the royal family, I think that role has kind of been shunted. I mean, that's still true, but that role has been partially shunted off to his bodyguards. Mm-hmm. Now, August is first and foremost a representative of Hilershka as an institution.
I would agree with that. I think that's a fair assessment.
Because he's not doing something the royal family would want him to do. He's doing something Hilershka as a small society would fully, he thinks, be fine with him doing.
Mm-hmm.
Because all this would be is proof for Wilhelm to not deny it if the next meal August calls for it on the table.
Yep.
Like he talked like he's like, it's like for a laugh. Like it's like haha, I caught you, and so now you can't deny it when I make you divulge your private sexual exploits to the entire male student body. Well, until at least all of Forest Ridge. Like,
which would not stay within First Ridge for long.
No.
Or Forest Ridge,
like,
sorry.
There's enough blabbers in Forest Ridge that it would have gotten around.
I mean, yeah, and that bit of intel would be
the philosophy of Hilershka. I know this from we know this from interviews with Lisa. The like on the table is inspired by real things that happen at these private or at least used to at when she interviewed the people who went there, who went to them. Like, the idea is that you're going to be with these people for the rest of your lives, and it's a small enough group that you need to know, not to be crass, but you need to know who everyone's fucked, because you need to know who you can trust, and you need to like not have there be any secrets. Like I think I mentioned this like last time, like no secrets among us, but then they never leave the circle.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like, yes, it would get around, like it wouldn't just stay in Forest Ridge, but that's by design. That's not an unintended consequence. That is how it's meant to be. Like, people are meant to know, oh, these two people hooked up, noted, but they're not together, so that means I still have a chance. Like, it's like, it's just like, it's like I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like, it's a policy of just like, sex is not sacred. Sex is business and an essential part of the gossip of this school. And the gossip of this school is an essential part of making sure the school functions as intended.
Yeah.
For this to be the training grounds of being a member of the upper classes of Sweden.
Yeah.
And like Europe as a whole.
Which is like messed up.
I mean, yes, we should acknowledge that it's very messed up. But
it's like, let's take the most personal thing, make it everybody's business.
Mm-hmm. Like, it's just like, it's this level of like frankness on a subject that, like, especially in the US, there are many, many people who just get very, very, like, it's just a very touchy thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like, violence is more prevalent on United States, like, television than nudity. By, like, a large margin.
Yeah.
And it's like, that's, like, inverted in Europe. And so, like, across, like pretty much across the board. And so it's like, you get it if you know that. But especially as an American, you're just like, what is this? Like, this is, and I think even in Sweden, people know, like, this is taking it way too far.
Yeah.
Like, the average Sosa would never think of doing this. But to end off this episode, which is the part A of Love Memorials, let's talk about Wilhelm and Felice.
Yeah. Besties for life.
Yeah, I just wrote besties, plain and simple, as much as other characters do and will want to keep interpreting them differently. Stop it. They're besties. I won't hear anything else. Like,
yeah.
They're like the most uncomplicated relationship that we'll ever talk about.
Yeah. They really are, which is really funny.
Of how they start, what happened last episode?
This time last cycle.
Yeah, exactly. We were like, ooh, I don't know. We definitely can't stand Felice this episode. Like, ooh, like.
I mean, we were just talking about how she kissed him this time last cycle.
Like, it's, and like.
It was uncomfortable.
Yeah, and like this, and then 2 weeks ago, I was like, I just want to form a Felice defense squad at this point. And the only reason I'm not standing her is because she's still dating August. Once she remembers that once she remembers that she has standards, we'll talk.
Yeah, pretty much.
I don't know. I like they're so uncomplicated that like I don't know what else there is to say. It's just like I love them.
Yeah, they're just besties.
And now they're Wilhelm. She is now Wilhelm's only friend, and Felice's only male friend that we know of to speak of. Like.
Do you think Felice knows that she's Wilhelm's only friend?
No. I think she believes that Wilhelm is close with like a Henry, a Walter, etc. the way she's close with Madison, Stella, and Frederica. She's like, oh, they're like the people in your grade. And she's like, she's too popular to not realize that some people don't have friends, I think.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't, I don't think she even recognized what she was doing for Sarah when she befriended her.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like, I think she's starting to realize now, but like when it started off, like she was not thinking about being like Sarah's only friend.
Yeah.
Like, I think Felice is just kind of friendly, which is an interesting thing. Like in the many, many ways that Felice goes against the like popular girl trope that like would normally be like a queen bee, like mean girl. Like, she's just like friendly to everybody.
She really is.
Like, not in like one of her first appearances. Like, she's rude to Sarah, but like she's having a bad day, and everyone has a bad day. And that was like, as a first impression, not great, but like in the aggregate, like as a whole, amazing person. Like, just like incredibly kind, incredibly sweet. Like, when she has her shit together, she is just incredibly giving and loving.
Yeah.
And like when she.
Which we see in this episode.
To a fault. But we will get to Felice and August next week. Want to take us out?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. If you'd like to keep up to date with when we release new episodes and other pod-related announcements, I wanted to see if I could do this without the script, and I got about 2 lines. You can check out our Instagram or our threads at People Don't Talk About. Our next episode will be no, it won't. It'll be part 2 of this. So stay tuned. And with that, all that's left to say is, let's start a revolution, baby.